The thing is, sometimes we try to fix what isn't broken, and we end up breaking what didn't need to be fixed. Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about life and how to live a good one no matter where you're living. If you're living on a farm, if you're living in the middle of the city, if you're living wherever you are, hopefully this podcast will speak to you. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 265. Today is January 29th, 2024. Today's topic is going to be, if it ain't broken, you know what they say, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. We're going to talk about a little something that I see happen in any community that we're in, but it's something I see a lot in the homesteading community where we need to talk about what we're doing and then other people see what we're doing and then we decide we need to change what we're doing because of what other people are doing. We're going to get into that a little bit. Before we get into that, what's been happening on the Lifestead? Well, let me tell you, the thaw is on here in central Minnesota. They say that we are on track to have the warmest winter since like 1887 or something. Isn't that crazy? We did wood this weekend and used the tractor, obviously, to help with that. And I'm going to tell you what, my yard right now looks like it's April, not January. April, because everything's mud. There's all these tire tracks all over the yard from where the tractor was driving, and there's these, where it was sinking down and making mud and getting, not stuck, but, we have all these ruts in the yard again. And I'm like, this is April stuff. This is the end of April stuff, not the end of January. This is just crazy. What else can I catch you up on? We also finally butchered the ducks, the Muscovy ducks. Finally got that taken care of. Ended up butchering 28 Muscovies. I believe we left 8 of them. So that would be our breeding stock. You know what I'm saying? They're going to give us more babies and all of that wonderfulness. But we did end up butchering 28. And from those 28, we ended up with 27 pounds of duck breasts. Isn't that amazing? Muscovy meat is red and it is hardly any fat at all. I mean, it's on par with like venison. And I'm so excited that we have that done. It was quite an adventure. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know, it was something that really got out of control this year and I really got behind. And this is something we should have taken care of months ago, but we didn't. And then there was a little extra level up with it because everything thawed now and got very messy. And I wish I could give you a visual of how absolutely out of control mess this butchering day was. I'm just going to let you mull on that in your imagination. Suffice to say, I'm very glad that it's done. There weren't any major issues. I did get stabbed in the finger by one of the ducks. So nothing too terrible. But, whatever. It was very interesting because if you don't know Muscovies are these ducks that are really more like geese and they have claws on their feet. Okay, like claws. Okay, and so it's a wild adventure to get them butchered. You really need to be a little protected. I was the catcher this time, and I was definitely in full gear to make sure that I didn't lose any limbs or anything. But that's all done. That's in the freezer. The freezers are absolutely full to the max. We are very blessed to have all the food that we have. So that is that. Another adventure that happened in the last few days, I wrecked my splitting maul, you guys. I got a little bit cocky, maybe. I don't know. I lined up to split a big giant log and I overshot the log, which means, if you need an explanation for that, it means instead of the blade connecting with the log, the handle connected with the log. Fiberglass handle, it cracked and it hurt. That sends like a shock through your system when that happens. And so it hurt. I split the handle of the splitting maul, so now I need to replace that. What I didn't realize until later that night is I had also split the back of my wedding ring. Now, I have not worn the diamond part of my wedding ring, the engagement part, for many, many years. Probably most of the time we've lived at the farm, it's just been in a box. But I did still wear just the gold band, and that split. So we need to go get that fixed. It is my great-great-grandma's wedding ring, so definitely want to take care of that. And what I realized the day after the whole splitting maul incident was I kind of wrecked my shoulder. So I'm telling you, I'm not 20 anymore. And you got to pay attention, y'all. You got to pay attention when you're doing these things on the farm. What else can I tell you? I colored my hair I was blonde for quite a while, which is my natural color, although it wasn't my natural blonde, because as you get older, you get a little darker before you go gray, of course. So, I like to put fun colors in every once in a while. And this time I put some fun colors in, kind of a dark purple underlayer with some darkish, purplish, I don't know what, lowlights, I guess, for those of you who are into hair. I have a wonderful hair gal who does wonderful, amazing things for my hair when I walk in and say, do this. And she's like, okay. And it's very fun. She likes having someone that she can kind of experiment on when it comes to hair. And I don't get too crabby if it doesn't turn out exactly how I wanted. But this is amazing. And other than that, I'm just really waiting for spring now because I got spring fever because it's so warm for Minnesota, 30s, 40s, all of that. All right, let's stop babbling and let's get on to the main topic and remind ourselves of this whole concept of if it's not broken, y'all, you know what to do. So before we get into this, I do want to tell you that this episode topic was inspired by my friends over at Two Chicks Homestead. So shout out to Nate and Aaron over at Two Chicks Homestead podcast. They did an episode a couple weeks back. I think it was episode 83, and it was called Old Man Winter. And even though they were talking about winter, they had some hot takes in that episode. Let me tell you something. And I really enjoyed that episode. They talked about some stuff, and I encourage you to go check out that episode. And from that episode, I kind of started thinking and decided to do this episode. So shout out to Nate and Aaron. Thank you for being awesome, and thank you for talking about the things you're talking about. Go check out their podcast if you're not listening to it already. All right, so we moved to our 5-acre homestead here in central Minnesota back in 2011. And it was this 4-year struggle of trying to get the sun and the moon and the stars to align in our favor. We thought it was going to be this 6-month journey, and it ended up being 4 years, but we finally got here and couldn't wait to get here. And what did we hope to attain by getting here? Why were we moving? Why were we getting to the homestead? Well, we wanted peace, and we wanted self-sufficiency, and we wanted to be able to raise our own meat and grow our own vegetables and do all these things that we would be able to do because we had land and we weren't living on Main Street in a little town. And that was what we wanted to do, right? A little bit of Ma Ingalls kind of fantasy thing going on. And so that was a point. And the weird thing is that sometimes you get what you want. Sometimes you get what you were trying to get. And then you blast right past it to change it to something else that wrecks what it was supposed to be. So let me explain what I mean. It's what happens when you say you want to raise meat and veggies for your family, and you figure out how to do that, and you're doing it in a way that is reliable, and you're doing it in a way that works for your family in an amount that works for your family, and the setup is perfectly fine, but you decide that you should add something else, just because. Or you should change something, just because. Or it's like when you have a way of starting seeds. And Nate and Aaron talked about this. You have a way of starting seeds, and it works for you, and it's always worked for you, and it's awesome. But then you see someone online who's using a certain grow light setup or a certain kind of heat mat, a heating mat, a seed heating mat, whatever they call them. I don't use them. I've never used them. But you see these people, they're like, you have to have a heating mat for your seeds to keep them warm enough. And you're like, oh, I don't have one of those. And you see all these people who are doing things a certain way, and they swear that's the way they should do it. And you look at your setup, which works perfectly fine. And you think, oh my gosh, we need to be doing that thing over there. So our seed starting that already works perfectly fine can work more perfectly fine, right? Now, making improvements is one thing, and we should always, always, always be willing to look at our systems and look at our setup and look at the things that we're doing and see if there are places where it could work better. But, and this is something we don't talk about enough, it also takes a certain amount of bravery to look at your systems and look at your setup and look at the things you're doing and look at the choices you've made and admit when they are perfectly fine. And that our desire to change them is because we got bored, or we saw something really cool online, or something that another homesteader or another parent or another business owner or another podcaster or another whatever We saw what they were doing, and we decided it was probably better than what we were doing. It was probably better than our setup, and so we decided we were going to change what we were doing. The thing is, sometimes we try to fix what isn't broken, and we end up breaking what didn't need to be fixed. You have to be really careful, my friends. Now, this has been the weirdest Minnesota winter ever. In my memory, I don't remember a winter here that has ever been this warm. I don't remember a winter where we already had mud in the driveway and no snow at the end of January. To me, that's just wild. So we're having the weirdest Minnesota winter ever. And the lack of snow and the temps that kind of hint at this early thaw, which is kind of happening, has a lot of people locally considering what awesome things they're going to do this year on their homestead. Because everybody's got like that itch, right? Because it feels like spring right now, almost. It's getting to that point where it feels like spring. You've got that itch because you're looking outside and you see grass and you're like, what is happening? And I don't need a coat to go outside right now, so what is happening? So you start thinking, what are all the great things I'm going to do on my homestead this year? And while that is really fun and really exciting, and we absolutely should do that, I think sometimes when we're looking at all the cool things we're going to do, we decide to change things simply because we had way too much time to think, and we went down a rabbit hole, and we saw that awesome homesteader someone has their chicken coop set up in a totally different way than we do, and we think, oh my God, we should totally do that too. And there's nothing wrong with the setup of your chicken coop. There's literally no issues with your chicken coop, but now a problem has been created in your head that can only be fixed by changing everything about your chicken coop, right? So before you go to town, completely revamping and changing your system, whether that's a chicken coop we're talking about, or your homestead, or your parenting setup, or your job, or like whatever you're looking at going, oh, we need to change that. I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. The first one is, what is your why? I want you to think back to the original reason for the thing that you're looking at, whether that's the chicken coop or, the color of your walls, or like whatever we're talking about. What was the original reason? Why did you take the job you took? Why did you make the move you made? Why did you decide to budget the way you did? Why did you set that certain goal? Why did you move to the farm? Why did you put your garden in that area? Think back to your original reason for what you're doing. Get solid with what that was. Like, remember what that was. And once you remember what that was, your second question is, what works for you? Does the thing that you're doing right now, does it work? Does it work for the goal you had? Does it line up with your why? And is that enough? Does the system need to change? Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. If it works, it works. So why do we keep changing? Why do we keep talking? Why do we keep searching for a better way to do stuff? Not that there's not better ways to do things, but I think part of this goes back to that point where what you're doing is what you're doing. At some point, you become a homesteader, you become a homeschooler, you become a content creator, you become whatever you become, right? And after so long, it's just what you're doing. And when it's just what you're doing, people stop talking about what they're doing. But in the world we live in now, where people want these constant updates on what's going on with you, especially if you're on social media, especially if you're a content creator, you feel like you have to have this new thing to talk about. There's got to be a new thing. This is why I maintain that there are people in the homesteading community who have gotten emus because they want something new and cool to talk about. You know what I'm saying? Emus are cool. But what's the real reason behind getting an emu? Is it so you had more content? You had something new to talk about? It's the glitter on the thing that you're doing every day? Because you're tired of talking about tomatoes, you're tired of talking about the chickens you have, or, is that why? If you have attained what you wanted, you don't have to keep changing the setup. And I know that it is crazy to think that something will just work without constant improvement or constant alterations. But if it's not broken, you don't have to fix it. If it's not broken, Don't let someone else's system or setup or choices cause you to overthink your way into believing that you need to fix what you're doing. Alrighty, everyone, that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me once again here at the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. There's a gazillion podcasts you could be listening to, but you once again showed up here. So thank you for that. Head over, check out my website, check out all the things I got going on over there. Share this podcast with someone you love or someone you don't love. I don't know. I would love to get the word out here about everything we're talking about here at the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, because you never know what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be real life. That's all I'm going to say. All right, you guys have an awesome week, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com. Find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media, or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.